Are we talking play-in?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs, right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Glad to have you all back, and hope you're all having a great day, and you are back here at the one spot, the only spot for all things silver and black. We're always thankful you're here, and subscribe to Locked On Spurs wherever you get your favorite podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Ken's 5 Plus app. You know where to go. Go subscribe, get it done right now. And also, there's a link in the description below that is to our newsletter. Click on that. It's free to sign up. And also, you see the QR code on your screen. If you're on the YouTube side of things, scan it. You're in. Fun little companion piece for Locked On Spurs. What are we talking about today? Play-in. You know, remember the whole heading up to the old this season saying, oh, they're going to flirt with the play-in. Yeah, they might be around the play-in. Oh, they might miss the play-in. But as of now, do we have enough samples? I say, you know what? No, they're getting in. They're getting in, and they're going to be in that mix. We're going to be talking that. Then, of course, review tonight's Spurs Jazz game. Yeah, the Jazz again. I feel like the whole calendar is just Spurs and Jazz. Today's episode is brought to you by Built. Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That's JOINBILT.com/LockedOnNBA. Yeah, playing, huh? Now, Vegas still has the Spurs projected to win a little like 35, 36 games around there. That's not going to be enough to get into the play-in in the West. But could Vegas actually have gotten it wrong? The Spurs are on a 3-game winning streak. They're going to take that tonight versus Jazz. Possibly could go to 4. They're above 500. The numbers are showing that their defensive and offensive rating are getting stronger. As a matter of fact, they're in the top percentile of the league when it comes to defensive numbers. All this is coming together, and that's been without, for the most part, in this time span, Wemby, Sohan, obviously, Vassell, a game without Keldon. But they're getting it done. You're seeing guys step up. Is it going to be enough to push them into the play-in? I think so. I think so. I don't know. We'll look at the bottom feeders right now. Well, bottom feeders, the lower echelon of the West, who they might be competing with. I'm trying not to get excited, everybody. I know it's 17 games in, okay? We can't, put a bow on this and say, all right, punch their ticket to the play-in. But they're playing like they could make some noise when the season is wrapping up. All right, who's going to be discussing that? And probably just going to be pushing back on me the entire, segment about the Spurs in the play-in tournament. He is Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. He is back, everybody, rocking the NC cap. No Trey Jones talk. No Trey Jones. You're safe.
You brought him up. Seriously? Why would you bring him up? It always happens.
I feel like it's tradition now. Like I have to bring him up, for when you're on here. By the way, he gets his own intro music. It's going to play it. There it is. There it is.
You know what I realized, Jeff? This is the same song that we use when we do our pick'ems on Fridays for football. The exact same song.
Real?
Yeah, I transferred the intro music to our show, so that way you get double dose when I'm on Locked On.
There you go. Yeah, see, Rudy's the only guest that has his intro music because he comes on so often that he deserves a little spicy entrance a la WWE with the fireworks exploding as he goes down the ramp. But I don't know, Rudy, you gonna be wearing those Speedos as he walk down the ramp?
I don't know about that.
Yeah. I don't think nobody wants to see that. I don't think anybody wants to see that, Rudy. Maybe just wear the yeah, dude, they were like, what about the Speedo long pants?
No, I'm just put me in jeans, man, or shorts. We're good.
There you go. Easy enough. All right. He is with Sweep the League. Follow him on X at Sweep the League. We're going to be talking about his show later on and why you should be subscribing to that as well. Rudy, you are here because the Spurs are playing pretty well. And yeah, shocking everybody. They're above 500. They're above 500. And they're on a 3-game win streak. They're not getting clobbered. They're showing their mettle by coming back late in games. They're not dying and wilting away. And then when the numbers show it, we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Rudy, before we continue with you, I just want to say something really quick. I am not going to be surprised if this team is in the play-in. I don't think they're going to be I don't think at the end of the day, we're going to be, oh, they're in? Oh, wow, that's so stunning, shocking. Oh, can you believe it? I don't think it's going to be that type of reaction based on what we're seeing right now. Their defense is tight. they've been a pretty good defensive team to start the season. Offense have been kind of struggling. Maybe blame it on some injuries, but it's starting to trend in the right direction. We're seeing things come together little by little. Am I jumping the gun here? Am I saying, play in, stamp it, get their play-in passport and stamp it, they're in? What do you think?
I would say as of right now, Jeff, they are a play-in team. The way they've been looking, you're getting superb performances from Chris Paul. Obviously, you're seeing the emergence of Stephon Castle, who we've
Yeah.
talked about. And by the way, bringing up Stephon Castle, for those of y'all that don't like me out there, you get the look now. You put the face to the body, to the voice that you hear when I was talking about Spawn. But no shot to the guy. He was cool about it. But nonetheless, I mean, right now you're seeing a play-in caliber team. Now, playoff team, still a little bit off ways, I think. It's still early in the season. We're only 17 games into the season. So we got to see what happens. But look at the teams below them. You figured Minnesota would have been up there, but they are in a heap of trouble with Julius Randle, Gobert, Anthony Edwards. They're just not in sync. It's still early, so they could be. Sacramento is another loaded team that probably still hasn't gelled with DeMar DeRozan getting there as well. The Pelicans have fallen off the face of the earth. I have no idea what happened with them. But overall, the Spurs are playing as good as any team on the middle part of the Western Conference. So they're playing just as good as the Mavericks, if not better. The Clippers are up there, but I kind of see them faltering here and there sometime during the season. So to say they're a play-in team, I'm not gonna push back on that. I say right now they're a play-in team. But let's get to game 35, 36 and see where they're at that point.
Yeah, no, I'm with you right there. I'm glad you brought up the lower teams. I'm actually surprised. One of my surprises this season so far, just overall, not just the Spurs. Dallas has been kind of slow out of the gates. New Orleans, you mentioned it. Just what happened to them? Just okay. By New Orleans, I thought they'd be a lot better. Zion came in shape and whatnot. So the Spurs have a window right now to really capitalize on some of the other teams that could be vying for a play-in spot, take advantage of it right now and pounce on it. And they're doing it. They're doing it. Now, again, before we get to some numbers, and we're going to bring them up in a little bit, what I'm seeing why this team could be a play-in team is because of two names, Barnes and Paul. Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes. Their serious approach to the game, their professionalism to the game, even to the point where I had to talk to Harrison Barnes about a comment that, comments he made to Keldon Johnson on the court in the win versus Utah at home. For those who don't remember, the game was pretty much all Spurs. It was over, just seconds left in the game. And Keldon Johnson went up for a dunk. Instead of just going for a dunk and calling it a day, he hung onto the rim, rattling it, kicked his legs up, and he fell to the court. Barnes pulled him aside, center court. Now, mind you, this is the longest tenured Spur. He's not a kid. He's a veteran of the league. Barnes says, what are you doing? Stop it. Why? And I asked him that after the game. I said, okay, so you two had a conversation. He said, we cannot give any type of momentum to the opposition whatsoever. Barnes even told me that he had to tell Keldon, even in practice, stop doing that. See, those little things right there, that veteran presence that Paul gives and Barnes gives, I think this is going to push the Spurs not only to rack up more wins, but enough wins to get into the play-in. But here's the question, though, Rudy. To get into the play-in, they got to get about 44, maybe 46. Can they do that? You think they can get that mark and just blow the win total projection out of the water?
So I had them at 30 wins, and they're actually on pace right now to win a lot more than that. That's for sure. But to get to 46, it's kind of tough. I mean, you're talking. Forget last season. Yeah, forget the past. It was 22 wins. I mean, forget that sense. I give them the 30. I think they can get, just by the way they're playing, if they can, stay away from the injury bug, which we've seen Devin and Victor already go through, but they didn't falter during that time either. I think if you can stay away from the injury bug on Chris Paul and Barnes, your veteran leaders, I can see this team right around that 36 win mark now, 37 win mark. So a lot more wins than we're expecting them to get. But to get to 46, Jeff, it's going to take a lot. They still haven't really played a lot of the better teams in their prime, put it that way. I mean, They beat the best team in the West in Golden State. There's no doubt about that. That's a very good victory right there. They beat Oklahoma City. They beaten the Houston Rockets. Oklahoma City, you can point, well, they didn't have Chet Holmgren. Okay, well, they still beat them because they didn't have Victor. So
Yeah.
they've beaten the better teams in the West. But to get to that 46 win mark, I'm still skeptical. I got to get through another, like I said, another 17 to 20 games, just to see exactly where they're going to be. And then by that time, we'll figure, okay, yeah, 46 wins might be a very good possibility.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we have somewhat of a sample size, 17 games. I know you're right. I do agree with that. I need more, about 30, 35 before we really get going. But the decent sample size we have right now is showing that the numbers, the trends, the X's and O's, the intangibles, they're going in the right direction. And you can't even say, they had a soft schedule because they've beaten the top 3 teams in the West, the Warriors, the Thunder, and the Rockets. So they taking care of business. He is Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Follow him on X at Sweep the League. When we get back, we're going to be looking at some numbers. What do the numbers show us as far as the Spurs in the right direction? I'm going to tell you right now, if you look at the last 5 games, the last 10 games, yeah, I think Spurs fans will be putting a big smile on their faces when you hear some of the good number news that we're going to bring up in just a few minutes. We're going to talk to you about Built. Hey, there's a PSA for anyone who rents. If you haven't heard of Built, you're about to thank me. Earning points on rent is now a reality when you pay your rent through Built. You don't even have to check with your landlord to start earning points that you can use towards flights, hotel stays, fitness classes, even your next rent payment. Let me break it down for you. Basically, there's no cost to join Built, and as a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels, airlines, even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your Built points towards. Points can be also redeemed towards a future rent payment, unique experiences that only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to Built or joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That's joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. Make sure to use our URL so they know that we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA to start earning points on your rent payments today. This episode of Locked On Spurs is brought to you by BetterHelp. You want to go to BetterHelp right now, but you're looking towards online therapy. BetterHelp can help you keep on doing things that you're doing right and also help you get your life straight, as well as just help you overcome what you need to overcome, whether that's facing your fears or pretty much, holding yourselves accountable. You want to go to BetterHelp to make yourself a better version of yourself. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It is just for those who experience major trauma, learn how to create setting boundaries, learning positive coping skills. It is everything you need in an online therapy. So you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. You fill out a brief questionnaire, get a match with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Get yourself 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. We're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Rudy Campos himself. Follow him on X at Sweep the League. He promises he will not wear Speedos if he's coming down the ramp on a WWE introduction moment. He not do that. Or maybe
Do they
more
even
like
do that anymore? I think the majority wear the pants.
Well,
I would think.
the Rock does it, but then again, that guy's a freak of nature.
Well,
yeah.
man, we all look like the Rock. We'd probably be wearing less than Speedos half the time.
You might be shirtless right now on Locked On Spurs. You look at the Rock.
Definitely.
He is with Sweep the League. He'll talk about his show in just a few minutes. We're going to look at some numbers now. So what are the trading the right? Yeah. And, are you, by the way, before I pull up the numbers, are you a stats guy? Do you really rely on stats? Because there's old school eye tests and then there's stats, new school. Where do you land?
I'm more on the eye test part, but to me, stats basically back up my eye test. So I'm both basically, but first I'm an eye test guy.
All right. Well, let's look at some numbers here and why I think the Spurs, and Rudy thinks as well, the Spurs might be knocking on that playoff door and getting in. So overall, through 17 games, this is if defense wins, then they're doing it right. They're in the 8th percentile in defensive rating at 111.7. Excuse me. That's good. The problem is overall, though, again, through 17 games, their offensive rating has not been the right way. Now, that could be because of injuries to Wemby and Sohan and Vassell and that one game versus Keldon. Offensive rating is at 111.9. That's a good for a net rating of 0.3. Not good enough, right? So that's overall. But if you look at the last 5 games, yeah, no, sorry, let's look at the last 10 games, excuse me. Their defensive rating does come down a bit to 112.7, but their offensive rating shoots up. So then they're correcting that. So they're correcting their offensive rating. They're kind of coming to a balance now. Their offensive rating in the last 10 games is 114.1, good for a net rating of plus 1.4. Again, the right trend. They're going in the right direction. Now, if anything that's telling to me, if we look at the last 5 games, is they're getting it done on the defensive end. They're third in block percentage. Thank you, Victor Wembanyama and Charles Bassey too, at 8.6. Okay, they've won 3 games in a row. They're not getting knocked to the floor as we saw in the Utah game and the Warriors game where they stormed back to take W's. So overall, I'm looking at those type of things. We're mixing the eye test and plus some of the numbers right now. They're definitely trending the right direction. But do you also think, Rudy, that this could be a situation of it's still early? It's still too early to say, oh, these numbers are great. Look at the Spurs are beating, because some of these teams may have not got their rhythm and flow.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Is it safe to say that they're peaking at the wrong time because it's too early for them to be peaking? I don't know. I would say probably not, but a good test is going to come right after the Jazz game because it's the Lakers, the Kings, and the Suns. Now, we mentioned the Kings being one of the teams that's struggling, but again, I think it's the addition of DeMar DeRozan still trying to get a feel for the team. You see it happen when the Spurs have added free agents in the past. It takes a little bit of time to get going. So,
Yeah.
I would say right now that through the first 17 games, they are well overachieving. There's no doubt about that. They are overachieving big times, but I think they're actually playing good at the right time for later on. Is what I'm trying to word it right, for later on in the season, because you're going to get your wins now. When you win, it builds good character. It builds a winning locker room. I mean, hell, Jeff, we saw a version of the beautiful game 2.0 just recently.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that you would probably never have expected to see from this Spurs team, but it's the addition of Paul, it's the addition of Barnes that makes something like that happen. So I would say the trajectory is a really good direction, but it's still the sample size. It's 17 games in the season. I don't want, X and Facebook and all these other social media accounts, that fans for the follow the Spurs. Let's not overhype it just yet. Be excited, be giddy, because you're seeing a brand new Spurs team accomplish what we didn't expect them to accomplish. So it's good to be excited. It's good to be great about it. But as you prominently say on the show here, pump the brakes just a little bit. Let's get a few more games in. If they're like 15-8, if they're 16-8 or something, then it's like, okay, let's go ahead and go into second gear now, because we're starting to see the consistency. That's the one where we talk about is consistency. We'll start to see the consistency. So 3 wins in a row, 4 wins in a row. Great. Awesome. That's great. But at what point do we start to say, okay, this team is just overachieving? We got to get the sample size. That's the biggest thing. So I agree. It's a good trajectory, but the sample size is way too small.
Well, if we're going to look at other numbers that show the Spurs are trending in the right direction, let's look at the second half. The second half lately has been almost the Spurs' bread and butter.
Yeah.
I don't want them to be down, and that's a bad thing. But the good news is that they're playing to win in half. Excuse me, as my microphone falls down here. Let's look at some numbers in the second half. So over the last 5 games in the second half, the Spurs are in the 3rd percentile, Rudy, in defensive rating at 100.8. That's today's league. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And their offensive rating vaulted to the 10th percentile at 117.1. Good for a net rating, 16.3. That's what they're doing the opposition in the last 5 games,
There.
your San Antonio Spurs. By the way, these numbers are courtesy of pivotfade.com, a great website. Go check it out. So, and then again, if we're looking at the second half and they're rallying, they're coming back, they're making furious comebacks to get W's. Yeah, they have gotten W's in these comebacks. Their turnovers, 8th percentile. They're preserving the ball in the second half, 12.6 turnover percentage. The assists, they're in the 1st percentile of the league in second half play at 77.1%. They're facilitating, they're defending, they're getting it done defensively, they're getting it done offensively. I think once everything comes together, this team could be scary. You bring in Sohan, Devin Vassell comes back. Obviously Keldon will be back. I think it was kind of just a day rest for him.
Yeah.
But at full power, with some time for Sohan and Devin to get back in rhythm, I think this team could do it. I think this team could get into the play. And now I'm not saying they're going to be number 7 or number 8.
It'd be the 10.
I can see a 9 or a 10. I wouldn't be surprised. What do you think?
Yeah, I can see a 9 or 10. If they continue on this path, it's going to be a 9 or 10. It's going to be interesting to see when you get a healthy Devin and you get a healthy Jeremy back, what's going to happen. Because does putting Jeremy back in the lineup, does it affect other parts of the game? It's so weird because I know, you've covered the game for a while. I've covered it and I've played it as well, not in the NBA, but you also notice, even as a coach, when I've coached basketball, when you have a player that's out and you insert them, chemistry is a big thing because chemistry could be a factor where this guy hasn't played in a while. This team's rolling. Do I upset him and not put him in the starting lineup? Do I have to make an adjustment? Say, hey, I'm going to need you to come off the bench because I like the current team that we've got, the way it's constructed going in. And that's a reason why I push for Stephon Castle to remain a starter, because you see the starts that they have. And that's where I'm thinking the second half of the game, that's normally their bad part, especially in the fourth quarter, Jeff. The most recent history, they were blowing leads. They were just not getting it done. But with Steph Castle in the game, I feel you keep it as competitive as possible and you kind of build that momentum at the beginning of the game so you're not trying to play catch up a lot of times. And does Devin go to the bench? No, you don't put Devin on the bench. I think the one guy out who personally is probably Jeremy. I mean, you go with literally a 4 guard, 4 small, right around Victor, and that's the lineup I'd like to see as a Devin, Chris Paul Jr.
Keeping Champagne in it?
No. So starting 5, I would go with Devin's return and Jeremy's return would be Chris Paul, Stephon Castle, Devin Vassell, Harrison Barnes, and Victor. That's what I would go with. Obviously, you lose a little bit of defense there, but where you lost the defense, Devin and Stephon are very undervalued and underrated on the defensive side of the ball. So is Chris Paul. Chris Paul can be a pest on the defensive side. That lineup right there screams scoring and it screams defense. So that's the kind of starting 5 I would probably go with to get the team off to a very fast start. Then you're coming off with Jeremy and Keldon. I think those 2 guys right there would be perfect. You see the emergence of Bassi, Mamu as well. So you kind of build up the bench rotation with those 2 guys there. I don't know, man. That's just my opinion. But playing spot 9 or 10 is realistic right now. But I got to get 20 more games in before I can really feel good in the heart about it.
Yeah, it is kind of still early a bit, but we're seeing this team show that this is an NBA team that the opposition cannot sleep on. They cannot do that anymore. Last year, maybe. This year, they cannot. Their defense is improved. They're getting help from other players. Your Blake Westleys, your Mamus, you mentioned, your Charles Bassi, Malachi Branham. These guys are coming in. Zach Collins. I know he's kind of a lightning rod right now with Spurs fans, but he does, have a decent game from here and there. So you bring all that together, and again, knowing that this team is injury riddled right now without their head coach, by the way, bang up job by Mitch Johnson there, kudos to him for keeping the ship afloat. I'm not going to be surprised if this team makes a play-in whatsoever. But what do y'all think? Do y'all think the Spurs will be in the play-in for sure, or you might miss it? Maybe Vegas got it wrong. It's rare that Vegas gets it wrong. Trust me,
Get it wrong.
they get it wrong sometimes. This could be one of those rare moments we shall see. Here's Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Follow my next at Sweep the League. We'll get back. We're going to be discussing tonight's game, Spurs Jazz. Yeah, the Jazz again. I think this might be the last time we see this Jazz for the season. So we're going to be looking at that matchup. But first, I want to talk to you about Skims. When I found out Skims has making underwear for men, I have to admit, I was pretty excited. I've been buying Skims now for a while, and it's, I'm just raving about this comfort, how easy it is, just to feel so great in those Skims. And well, you know what? I love it, and I really, really enjoy wearing Skims. Look, you feel like you're just in heaven. You're just comfortable with it. The fabric is soft. It's a winner, everybody. Skims came out with recently their cotton 5-inch boxer brief, and honestly, it puts other brands to shame. They hit right in the thigh, and they stay there. That's the key. They don't move around. They don't bag out. They don't give you that 5 p.m. wedgie. If you're a boxer brief guy like me, this is the one. You got to get Skims right now. Go and, well, let me tell you something. Go shop Skims right now at skims.com/LockedOnNBA. Let them know that we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show, Locked On Spurs, in the drop-down menu that follows. And if you're looking for the perfect gift for the whole family, Skims launched their biggest holiday shop ever, also available at skims.com/LockedOnNBA. We're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Rudy Campos, who is not wearing Skims on the outside.
No, I'm definitely not, man. What you see is what you get. I get the long sleeve shirt and all that good stuff. I don't have the physique of He-Man Jeff Garcia, so that's all I can say.
Look. I wear sweaters,
Covering up, man.
I wear sweaters and baggies because with great power comes great responsibility. Oh, I'll make sure I do that. But nevertheless, again, he is Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. He'll be talking about his show and why you should be subscribing to it momentarily. Spurs Jazz tonight. This is I think the fourth matchup between these two teams. The Spurs have the edge 2-1, and on paper, this should be a team the Spurs beat. The Spurs should really be up in the 3-0 right now. They had no business losing that one game in San Antonio, but nevertheless, they got to come in. They got to take care of business. When I'm looking at this team, at least as far as head-to-head, what's standing out is simply the defensive numbers. So the Spurs are averaging more steals in their 3 games versus Utah, 11 to Utah, 7. So defensively, they're getting it done. Blocks are getting it done. This is insane. The Spurs are nearly averaging 8 blocks a game versus the Jazz. Yep. Well, the Jazz are averaging about 5 against the Spurs. And they're preserving the ball, 14 turnovers in 3 games versus Utah, while the Jazz have turned the ball over 19 times. Does anything change for you that the Spurs are playing in Utah this time?
I used to when I was a kid because you would run into
what was it?
Karl Malone.
The Salt Palace?
Yeah. Well, no, it was the Salt Palace or the Delta Center?
It was the Delta Center. Right, yeah.
Yeah, it could have been the Salt Palace before. But yeah, I honestly, I do have concern because Utah, even though the record doesn't speak for what they can accomplish, they're a very good team. I mean, future Spur, hopefully, wink, wink, Lauri Markkanen, still the main guy there. He's averaging close to 20 a game. But let's not forget the supporting cast. John Collins can be a pest. Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, Keontae George is there. I mean, you got 5 guys that are averaging 6 guys were averaging well over 10 points a game. You still have Walker Kessler to deal with in the middle. He can make it very tough for Victor. So, yeah. I mean, the Jazz team, am I worried going into it? I am a little worried. This is a game where I could possibly see the Spurs falter. But the way the Spurs have been playing lately, it's all mentality. And that's what I love about it is you've got Chris Paul to get them to understand, okay, buy into the system. It's different when you get a coaching staff, Coach Pop and the guys telling the team to buy into the system. It's like you, Jeff, you're telling me one thing, but if I hear it from over here, I'm going to probably do it because it's a different person. getting these guys like Chris Paul to tell them buy into the system, buy into this, buy into that. I think going into the game, the Spurs have a fighting chance. I think I actually have them winning the game, but it doesn't surprise me if marketing kind of goes off and, gets a W for Utah, but I like the Spurs in this one.
Or Spurs killer Jordan Clarkson. It goes off. I can see that. But
why does he got to go to his own hometown?
I know, right? Like every single time that guy, well, not every time, but more often than not, Clarkson just puts it on San Antonio. Good news for the Spurs is that they won the last 2 visits in Utah, so history is definitely on their side. Some other numbers that could work in the Spurs' favor is they're getting it done on the offensive end as well. As much as I think it's going to be a defensive battle for the Spurs to get the W, and numbers are just showing that. Offensively, they've been really outscoring Utah in these 3 games that they've met up. 114 points per game versus Utah's 106. So they're getting it done offensively and defensively. Overall, it should be a good matchup. Shocking. They actually dropped more threes against Utah, than they do against other teams. They're connected on 31% of their threes to Utah's 27 in the 3 matchups. Overall, I think it's going to be a good game. The Spurs, I think they're going to get to win number 4 in a row. I think they did. No. It's going to be another hard-fought game, but ultimately, I think the Spurs escape Utah with a win and extend their win streak to 4 games in a row, something we haven't heard in years. A 4-game winning streak. Are you with me, Rudy? You think they're going to get it done tonight?
I lean towards the San Antonio Spurs in this game. It's a tough game. I'm not going to lie. It's a very tough game, especially with the 3 games looming after this one. Very tough game. I'll take the Spurs for the win to continue the win streak at 4. I expect San Antonio to honk on Commerce Street after this one.
Yeah, I hope.
And then kind of salute for a little bit.
Don't do that. Like you've been there before. Spurs fans do not go on Commerce Street and start honking your car horn. All right, he is Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Rudy, tell us about Sweep. You and Derek and Gio, all you guys are firing off cylinders lately. What's going on?
Yeah, so you can go to YouTube, search Sweep the League TV, be a subscriber on YouTube, where again we give away a lot of stuff, not weekly, but pretty often. It's myself, Derek Urban, Coach Gio. We're doing as many times as we can during the week, Monday through Friday. We go live at 9:00. But the biggest thing we've got going is our new podcast called Sweep Unplugged. We've done already upwards of 13, 14 interviews in the past couple of weeks. So all that content's there. We've added a whole lot of other shows, STL Music. That actually, Jeff, I'm going to be honest with you, the Wemby song went viral again. So thank you, Spurs, for winning, because that helps a whole lot. But just the only way to get, everything involved and get involved with it all together is go to YouTube, search Sweep the League TV, be a subscriber. And I'm promising, Jeff, that we've got Sweep Unplugged live coming. I was supposed to have him on with Chuck Vans recently, but he decided that he had to celebrate his birthday, and that's when they started kind of giving him. Yeah, it's just a birthday. I mean, nothing wrong with that. But we're looking to get you on for Sweep Unplugged live, because we kind of just go off the tails. We talk rock and roll, which it was a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, I heard Chuck dissected my picks. He removed 2 of them, right? He took out who did he take out?
AC/DC and Iron Maiden. He took out.
Yeah, and he replaced it with Sex Pistols and Nirvana, right?
Nirvana. Yeah. Man, the Sex Pistols one, I'm not gonna lie, that shocked me, but he made a valid case for it, so I couldn't argue with it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna argue with that, nor Nirvana. But when I think Nirvana, I know I think grunge rock, and when I hear rock, I think metal. That kind of. Lumping all genres together, grunge rock, metal rock, then it's in there.
I think the case was made that Nirvana could go number 1 ahead of Metallica, because the Metallica part, what Chuck said would make sense. Metallica, they're basically considered sellouts, but in a good way, because they popularized rock and roll and made it big. But what Nirvana did was take you out of the hairband and say, you don't have to have the cool curly hair, the clean look, da-da-da. You can have the dirty look, the grunge look. Yeah. And everything that Nirvana did just catapulted something else. Unplugged, MTV Unplugged. They were the first band to do it. Everybody else did it. So they were kind of the epitome of everything that happened after them. So, man, it's Metallica, Nirvana. I'd love you to put a poll on Locked On to see who would win that battle, because that would be a massive one right there.
That'd be a battle. I think Metallica would edge it out, simply because they're a pioneer. not to say Nirvana isn't, but Metallica is a pioneer, the vanguard of it. And I think that'll push them. Yeah. I'm pretty sure Chuck probably had a chuckle about my picks right there. No, he kept 3 in, so I guess I still won by a hair, I guess, because I had Black Sabbath, Metallica, and who's the one that he agreed with? He agreed with Black Sabbath. He agreed with Metallica.
Yeah, and then you had
Yeah.
Iron Maiden and
Iron
AC/DC.
Maiden in AC/DC, yeah. So, well, 50-50 I took out. So 50, I'll take it, Chuck. I'll take it.
500.
I'm batting 500. I'll take it. All right. He is Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Follow him on X at Sweep the League right now. We'll be back tomorrow talking all things silver and black, and the Spurs continue their season. And subscribe to Locked On Spurs wherever you get your favorite podcast. You know where to go. Kens 5 Plus app. Kens 5. The Kens 5 Plus app. That's probably the best way. It probably freaks me out every time I see myself on TV and all the guests that we have here. Also on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, you know where to go. And scan that QR code you see on your YouTube side. That'll get you to the Locked On Spurs newsletter, or click on the link in the description below. Subscribe today. So for Rudy Campos, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock in this episode of Locked On Spurs.